This is fictional mindbender. I mentioned in my last video on Eren that there were two different interpretations of the commander that were presented by two characters, Hanji and Flock, both knowing him under a completely different set of circumstances. That Hanji believed that Eren and the Survey Corps existed to free humanity, which in her mind included all of humanity, even those outside of the walls. And that Flock believed the same thing, except that humanity was exclusive to those within Paradis Island, since that was all the dead knew of it at the time of their demise. Now, what these views existentially also present as well are two very different views of the Survey Corps throughout the Attack on Titan series. And all this comes into bear during the second battle of Shingashina. Bearing in mind that we are introduced to the Survey Corps as Attack on Titan's version of DC's Suicide Squad, it's not like they were looked up to beforehand or for a very long time up until that point. If you join the military of the Three Walls, your goal was to be what John was trying to do in the first season. That is, get a comfortable position where all you had to do was basically put in your hours and go home, slacking included. The scouts, on the other hand, were responsible for facing Titan threat directly beyond the safety of the walls, and as such, had the body count to mount for it. For this, they were seen as being fools, even if their skills were superior to everyone else's within the military. You don't join them and plan on living a long life. They were ridiculed by their military peers and civilians alike, and even Eren Yeager's mother didn't want him joining because of that reputation. But they continued regardless because of their numerous sacrifices served the quote-unquote last remnants of humanity within the walls by discovering threats before they got close. That was their purpose. However, by the time of the second battle of Shingashina, I think this view had largely changed. Recent victories over the Titans, as well as discoveries about the Titans and the transitioning of the government to the rule of Historia Reese and her supporters, had put a new light on the Survey Corps. Now no longer looked as stupid meatbags to be fed to Titans, they were now seen as the vanguard of humanity, the tip of the spear. And this is where the paths of what they are diverges. The Shingashina campaign had forever changed the scouts in that while the reputation may have gotten a popularity boost right beforehand, the realities never changed. The entire Survey Corps takes part in this battle, and of the entire Corps, only 6 survivors remained out of the entire regiment. That's rather frightening. And this is important because this does two things. First being that it wipes out nearly the entirety of the OG veterans of the Survey Corps. Hanji and Levi, and the Sarge if you want to include him, even though he's not a Survey Corps member at this time anymore, are the only ones who remember the Corps when they were suicidal rejects of the Three Walls. While Eren and his friends were there as well, that was only towards the latter end of the OG's time together. So, essentially, that those who maintain the view of the ideal of just scouting and protecting humanity are no longer there to uphold those virtues during a later final war with Marley when that comes rolling around. Meanwhile, the new generation that steps up to replace them inherits the victories that their predecessors paid for, and thus the pride and nationalism that came with it, but pretty much without the sacrifices up until that point. This new Survey Corps is not familiar with sacrifice, though Flock was always more than ready to give them a sermon about it, given that he was also a survivor of Shingashina. But even that was his own experience coming up on the tail end of the previous generation, just like Eren and his friends were. The Survey Corps assault on Marley unveils this new incarnation in all its glory. Not only armed with the truth of their history and the struggles of their people, but now also new weapons and tactics as well that are arguably safer than what they were doing before, riding on horseback and trying to slash the back of necks of giant monsters trying to eat them. Moreover, these Survey Corps soldiers were more aggressive and gung-ho. It even included transfers from other units from within the three walls who now wanted to be part of the vanguard that they at one point had scorned. And doing this not for the sake of protecting humanity, as it were, but protecting the Eldians of Paradis Island, or, as Porco especially puts it, the devils of Paradis. The hard-learned worldview of their predecessors is not successfully passed down, as Hanji, by her own admission, says that she did not want the task of training a new generation to replace those she had lost and was dear to, and chose not to participate as much as possible in the responsibilities of being the new commander of the Survey Corps as much as she was able. And of course you have Levi being Levi, who doesn't really teach because he's very antisocial, unless of course you want an Ackerman ass-kicking of a lifetime. So essentially, the only people who still hold on to this old manifesto are Eren's friends and Levi. In contrast to this, the rest and future members of the Survey Corps take up the new mantra: if we fight, we live; if we don't, we die. The mission of the Survey Corps is no longer about protection, but about the survival of their race and doing whatever it took in order to do that. And for the first few of this new generation of Survey Corps members that then transitions into an army, Eren Yeager, as they've heard of him from Flock at least, is the very embodiment of this manifesto, having made the ultimate sacrifice in their eyes to protect humanity of Paradis Island by becoming the new devil, as it were. And we see these two versions of the Survey Corps, old and new, clash directly with each other when the Alliance goes up against the Jaegerists during the battle at the harbor when the Alliance is trying to leave to stop Eren. It's not just a clash in order to save humanity or save Paradis Island, but it's a clash of ideals, a clash of who are the Survey Corps going to be from this point on. Is it going to be those of the old guard or the new guard? Both sides are just as committed to their cause as the other, so it's difficult, I think, to call it as one side being the good guys and the other side being bad. But in the end, even though the Alliance comes out ultimately victorious and is able to escape in order to try and stop Eren on this path to continuing the rumbling, it also cost them, and that from this point on, their worldview has lost out in the Survey Corps. Now there is no one left who carries on those ideals about what the original Survey Corps members had stood for. That essentially, as far as this new Survey Corps was concerned, the old guard were now a bunch of traitors. And chances are that if they had stayed on Paradis Island, or even gone back immediately after they had stopped Eren successfully, they probably would have been executed. Gone are the days of riding out from the walls to the scorn and jeers of the people they protected on horseback into Titan-infested lands and being torn apart to gain any speck of information on being the last of the human race. And to be fair to Hanji and Levi, they are the only two people left of that generation, neither of them carrying the charisma and motivation that was needed to pass down and teach that wisdom and philosophy to the new Survey Corps members. Both of them were not equipped mentally and emotionally to handle such a task, whereas Flock, for whatever reason, whether you love him or hate him, was quite gifted at it. And arguably, even Eren Yeager himself. And that Hanji and Levi, arguably, and to be fair to them, weren't expecting Shiganshina to be such a bloodbath that would lead to the near annihilation of the entire Survey Corps, let alone the entire original generation of the Survey Corps. But having said all that, what do you guys think? Do you think one generation of the Survey Corps is better than the other? Do you think that there's a way that the old values of the Survey Corps could have been passed down to the new members and prevented them from becoming Jaegerists? Let me know in the comments below. But otherwise, this is Fictional Mindbender, and you guys have a good day.